What do we got here? Well, I see that we got our Infect counters up here in Time Walk Magic, and that can mean only one thing, that we've got Infect. Owen Mitchem rocking the Infect deck. It's been kind of hiding for a while, has it not?
Yeah, I mean, Infect got quite a bit worse with the printing of Fatal Push. However, it's worth noting that it's still one of the most powerful things you can be doing in the format. And people are playing a lot of spot removal right now. I'm not sure how well positioned it is at any given time, but I regularly see players playing Infect sitting at top tables at modern tournaments that I'm going to. So very much a real deck.
Still dead. Still not dead. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side of the table, Christopher Senf, he's playing the mid-range deck that just never seems to be able to get a foothold in the format. Black-white tokens. It's always fine. It has powerful cards. It just never seems to get there, Jake. The metagame has never rotated around where it was like, there it is. Black-white tokens, it's your time to shine. It just never wins anything.
And it seems like it would have to be good at some point, right? Because
you'd think so. Because the cards are good.
All the cards are good. Oh, this is a nice one. Legion's Landing out of black-white tokens. It's a nice,
seems
nice
good.
card.
Seems fine. Inquisition of Kozilek, by the way, took away a Vines of Vastwood, one of probably the premier pump spell in the Infect deck, and that could help keep Christopher alive for a little bit longer. But we know how these things can go, because Christopher is completely tapped out at this point, and he's facing down a Blighted Agent. Now, he hasn't taken any poison yet, but he could lose here, right? Like we've seen, the exact right set of circumstances to get that just one-shot kill. Normally, it takes 2 to 3.
So it's worth noting this Infect deck, when playing removal spells against it, you usually want to use them during your main phase. You don't want to get punished by the cards that pump the creatures and also give them hexproof. And this is one of the major ways that Infect steals games.
I'm going to interrupt you here because we see that the graveyard is being counted, and I would say Chris is dead. Because once they start counting the graveyard, you know what's coming, and there we go. Vines of Vastwood with kicker.
Yep, and then here we go, become a
Games. That's it.
Yep. And
GG.
that's 11 points of
I just said it, right? I just said
Yep.
They can one-shot you, and that's what it takes. It takes Become Immense, and that's why that card's real stupid. And Christopher Senf is like, hey, look, I made a 1/1 with lifelink. That was the sum total of his plays for the game.
I mean, he Inquisitioned him, too. He's like, I'll take your best card. I'm dead next turn.
Yeah, and then he's dead anyway. Welp. How about we go to game number 2? That is just ridiculous.
Well, this is exactly the kind of matchup, though, that you want to be playing when you're playing Infect. They're a deck that has to tap out. They play a lot of 4-mana cards that you can ignore to some degree. Cards like Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, and the like,
I mean, I think that Owen, for the most part, can just ignore what Christopher's doing almost full stop, right? It's only the interactive spells that he has to care about. Because one of the downside to black-white tokens is that while it does have a fairly consistent and relatively powerful game plan, it is slow.
It is.
You cannot kill your opponent on turn 4 with the deck. It just never happens, It's a turn 7 deck, and that's just, even with the really good disruption options that you get out of both black and white, especially post-sideboard, it's too slow.
Yeah, and one of the things is in post-sideboard games, especially in matches like this where you want to be bringing in a lot of interactive cards, your token deck, your deck relies on a great deal of synergy in terms of putting together an offense. And by putting in a bunch of cards like Fatal Push and Path Exile and Targeted Discard, suddenly, you're kind of just attacking them with Lingering Souls tokens that aren't buffed and the like. Because it's really, really difficult to be able to include the cards that are synergistic with your tokens and also include the cards that are interacting with your opponent's game plan.
And this is a perfect example right here. Bitter Blossom, which is going to have effectively no downside in this matchup. It's just going to spew out 1/1s, is fantastic, right? I mean, that is a great, absurd... Yeah. That's the reason this deck exists, for the most part, is when that thing got unbanned, people were like, well, maybe I'll poke around and do this. And there's a reasonable chance that it doesn't do anything this game. Like, if...
I don't know. It's really good against Infect.
It's okay. They have Blighted Agent.
They have Blighted Agent.
You're screwed. Yeah.
But the thing is, like, now all you have to do is make them discard and or kill Blighted Agents.
That's true, but that's very difficult. Right? The whole entire deck is set up to protect that card.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling really good if I'm in Christopher's seat here. I think, like, Lingering Souls...
I'm feeling like I'm in the
Blossom
best spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's a nice one. Thoughtseize is going to see Rancor, Might of Old Krosa. Wow, a pair... Oh, so no threat outside of the Inkmoth Nexus, and that's where, again, cards like Bitter Blossom shine. You mentioned Lingering Souls as well. Absolutely fantastic against it. They just can't get through.
Yeah.
Like that card will not be able to get through. Yeah, and they're not really set up for that.
Yeah, I mean, Rancor, I think, is the...
That is your way to do it.
And he does have the Rancor in hand here, so, you know, if Christopher happens to tap out on the wrong turn, he could just die to a Rancor plus become events.
I looked it up. It's Rancor.
Oh, Rancor.
Yeah. I looked it up.
Thank you.
I got the facts. By the way, that's a second copy of Inkmoth Nexus. And a Glistener Elf. But again, these are not the threats he wants.
No, he wants Blighted Agent.
Yeah. And without seeing it, there's a lot riding on that Rancor. Because, you know, Chris is still going to have his removal spells around, right? Like, all those Fatal Pushes are still hanging out in the deck. Fatal Push is so good against Infect.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's one of the major reasons why we haven't seen Infect as much recently. I think it is the major reason.
Yeah.
They get a card like Blossoming Defense and they disappear. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah. Yeah, crazy.
Because Blossoming Defense is, you know, just absurd in the Infect deck. It's, you know, it's basically a negate that also, you know, deals with 20% of the game.
Is that Collective Defiance?
Collective Brutality
Or
here.
Brutality, I mean, yeah.
So we have to see if he's going to discard a card here to Collective Brutality. So he's discarding a Duress, it looks like.
To get a Duress.
Yeah.
Kind of weird, right? Like, he literally changed the discarded Duress into a Duress. He's going to take away one of the copies of the most scary card in the deck. Become Immense. And he's also got Thoughtseize this turn, so he is just destroying Owen Mitchem's hand here. Wow. Ripping it apart.
Yeah.
That's the third hand disruption spell we've seen. There you go.
That's
so,
the card you want to
Yeah, it makes sense. Like when he took the Become Immense, yes, it is the most scary, but I was like, Rancor's the way that he can actually get through. And it's also this annoying, recurring thing. No, not this time. He's going to take it away. That was smart play there from Christopher.
Yeah, without a card like Rancor, it's going to be really difficult for Owen to be able to beat this Bitter Blossom.
Oh, this is interesting. He drew Apostle's Blessing here, Jake. Uh-oh, he's counting. He still has a Become Immense and a Might of Old Krosa, right?
Does he have another... He doesn't have the land, though, to Apostle's Blessing. Okay, so he's getting
He's just
going to
get in for a bunch.
If he had access to one more mana, though, Christopher would be dead.
So he's just going to put a little fear in Chris here?
Yeah, I mean...
Wow, he was one mana away.
I mean, having Christopher at 7 is pretty absurd when he has the Might in his hand, too, though, because he can play the Might as an instant now, and any of his 1-power Infect guys suddenly become lethal if they're ever able to get through.
Yeah, we're going to probably see Christopher have to really shields up here. It sucks because he actually wants to keep attacking to get this game done. He's got to win 2 games, but 2 Inkmoth Nexus is pretty scary on the other side of the battlefield. What did he just draw?
That's a nice one. Intangible Virtue.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That's going to give all of his tokens +1/+2. And perhaps more importantly, Vigilance. So now Christopher's got a ton of toughness on the table. Oh, +1/+1. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No worries. But now he gets to have the best of both worlds, right? He gets to attack, put massive pressure on Owen's life total, but also keep his blockers back.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the best case scenario for Christopher. A great draw from him.
I haven't seen black-white tokens in quite some time, to be honest.
Me neither.
Played against it at all.
That's because it's not very good.
That's
my contention. Not that it's terrible. Again, its core game plan is solid. It's just in the middle too much. You know, it's just not quite fast enough, and sometimes runs out of disruption. And
it's weak to top decks and the like. Consolidating fairy tokens here.
I see that number is just telling us how many he's got, and then this is the new one over here on the side. Okay.
Because they're vigilant, he's just going to attack with all of them. He doesn't really.
And there's an Inquisition, and that's going to prompt that Might of Old Krosa. Just no one doesn't even bother casting it. He'd rather just keep the mana up.
Yeah.
And this is not a lethal attack, but it is all but.
Yeah, this will get Owen down to 2 here.
And I don't think that Owen has outs unless he's running. Again, we don't have deck lists this round, but unless he's running Distortion Strike or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Distortion Strike could be
still not quite good enough.
Still not quite enough. No. Yeah, that's it.
And that is going to do it. Christopher Senf's going to pick up game number 2. Turn 2 Bitter Blossom, no Blighted Agents in sight, and he gets the job done. So let's see what happens here in the third game.
So Owen on the mulligan here. One thing about Infect does not mulligan exceptionally well.
Yes, that is very true.
You kind of need that critical mass of cards, so that could affect Owen's game plan quite a bit here. However, Infect on the play is terrifying. So Legion's Landing here for Christopher. He's going to make a 1/1 token. Legion's Landing pretty strong in these black-white token decks also because it's able to ramp you into those 4-mana planeswalkers, things like Sorin or Gideon. Of course, 4-mana planeswalkers are just the worst cards in the world against the Infect deck.
Yeah, tap out. Okay, you're dead.
Good luck. So this match really, I think it's interesting because I think black-white tokens, while I don't think it's as bad for black-white tokens as I thought initially. I think Lingering Souls and Bitter Blossom are both really good cards in the matchup.
Yeah.
And if you're able to, hide behind those while you tear apart your opponent's hand, while you play spot removal spells, that could put you in a pretty good position. I do think, though, that the nature of black-white tokens, the way it takes longer, it gives an Infect opponent room to steal games in many ways. Ooh, and here we have a Jace Vryn's Prodigy. This is a pretty exciting one here from Owen.
That is really cool.
I like it a lot.
I mean, it doesn't do anything, but it's pretty cool.
No, I mean, it allows him to sculpt his hand into something very specific, and it also just allows him to, use the cards that, use his pump spells from the graveyard once he's able to flip it. Also soaks up a removal spell.
See if we've got a Bitter Blossom here for Christopher. Old Chris Mustard on the other side of the battlefield here. Did you know that that's what Senf means in German?
I did not.
Yeah. Mustard.
But I think in a longer match like this, a match where they're not going to kill you particularly fast, like black-white tokens, a card like Jace gives you the ability to sculpt your hand in a pretty nice way.
This is kind of interesting. Intangible Virtue was the play, so he does not have the Bitter Blossom. With just the 1 token out, he's going to get in for a couple of damage, but he's going to need to find some more tokens to take advantage of that Intangible Virtue.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine he has something like Lingering Souls in his hand as the follow-up play. And that's, again, going to force Owen into a situation where he really needs to have Blighted Agent plus some sort of way to protect it in order to win the game. Or he needs to wait for Christopher to tap out so that he could use just a flurry of pump spells along with something that gives one of his creatures trample or unblockability.
All right, what do we got? Mutagenic Growth, Might of Volcrosa, Vines of Vastwood, and a Blossoming Defense. What's missing from this equation?
An Infect creature.
Just a threat. He does have the Inkmoth Nexus once again, so he's not without, he's not without threats completely, and that could absolutely get the job done here. But his hand is very redundant, right? This is very much just straight up attrition. Like, he should probably take either the Vines or the Might of Volcrosa. Might of Volcrosa being the one that has the opportunity to give the most
damage for the least cost.
Right. Yeah. Vines of Vastwood being the most flexible. This basically indicates that Chris might have another hand disruption spell because he did leave him with a Blossoming Defense, which is very similar to Vines.
And now I think Owen, with the way this game is panning out, might just feel like it's in his best interest to start getting with the Inkmoth Nexus, especially if he's not drawing more Infect creatures.
Absolutely. And now Jace Vryn's Prodigy really starting to come into his own because it's going to transform. And he could just say, no, I'll target my Vines of Vastwood or whatever, and just sort of have that sitting there. This gets really interesting now.
It does.
And again, once again, the black-white tokens deck not applying enough pressure to the Infect deck here to make... Oh, we needed to transform Jace there, right?
I believe we did.
The old VP. Yeah, it is not a May.
Yeah.
It's unfortunately Time Walk, so we're kind of stuck here, but I assume that they figure it out.
One would imagine. Because, Owen gets an opportunity to use that Planeswalker ability this turn.
It's a pretty big deal.
That's a huge deal. That's extra loyalty while shrinking that token on the other side of the table. It's a lot of things.
Could he kill him? Maybe not. But he's going to go for Serum Visions. This is awkward.
Yeah, this is quite awkward.
Basically, he's going to be able to get in for a hit here, leveraging the Blossoming Defense that we know he's got to make sure that Fatal Push doesn't kill his Inkmoth Nexus. And then try to set up for the win next turn or for a major hit next turn. But, of course, he can't kick off the festivities. But, yeah, they just made a big mistake here. That Jace is supposed to be transformed. He should have been able to activate it this turn. Owen's noticed it now, but, man, I don't even know how this works.
Okay, well, they're flipping it now.
Yeah, this isn't... This is you have to call a judge at this point, and
absolutely.
The judge has to decide.
This is quite above board. This happened a while ago.
Yeah, he's already passed the turn back, and now they're going to do something where they just say, like, I guess I just don't get to use it.
Oh, it looks like there is a judge who may have pointed it out. Or Rich.
No, that's just Rich.
Yeah.
And he's being helpful from our coverage perspective, but of course it's not Rich's job, to be a judge here. It's the judge's job. And so Rich is just making sure that we can see what's going on with the dice. But, how is there a Jace transformed and it just didn't get activated? Like something weird happened there. So, just for the future reference, we beat this drum pretty hard. All the pros do as well. But, you got to call judges, right? This is what they're here for. And when something weird happens, much, much, much better for both players just to say, let's just call a judge. Wow, big draw there from Christopher, though. Hits his land drop and plays Lingering Souls, and that's a major development here because really Owen at this point is all in on the Inkmoth Nexus, and now he just doesn't have a viable threat.
Yeah, the thing is, Owen did just cast the Serum Visions, so he might have gone searching for something like a Blighted Agent, and he's also able to dig even further thanks to having Jace Telepath Unbound with that Serum Visions in his graveyard. So he can dig pretty deep to try to find a Blighted Agent, and we know that he has ways to protect the Blighted Agent in his hand. And if he's able to protect that Blighted Agent, it's going to be really difficult for Christopher to close this game fast enough. So I think ideally Owen plays Blighted Agent on the following turn and then wins the next turn. But if he's unable to do so, I think Christopher will be in a pretty dominant situation.
Krista ended up attacking Jace there. So Jace's loyalty is down to 3.
Yeah, so we're going to have to see what...
He can use the minus ability one time. It would finish off Jace, though.
It would. Instead, he's going to...
Just plus it on a random token. Oh, but he did find the Blighted Agent, Jake. And again, I mean, I keep saying this, but, you know, the fact that the Black-White Tokens deck just can't get that super quick kill could really come back and punish Chris here. Even if he can pile on, it's going to be hard to get in for the full 13. He's only got 3 creatures that are all 2/2s, even with another intangible virtue. It would make them 3/3s.
Yeah.
Which still isn't lethal.
One of them has been shrunk by the Telepath Unbound.
That's right. Right. So,
Yeah. Now, it does look like Christopher has Fatal Push, but
he does.
We know that Owen has Blossoming Defense. So Christopher may want to use this Fatal Push during his main phase, because if he decides to use it on Owen's turn, then Owen's going to get an extra 2 free points of Infect out of it. And the truth of the matter is that he's likely just dead.
You know how these things go with Infect. They're just basically trying to craft the perfect hand. And once they do, they've got redundancy. You need to have you need to have 3 removal spells, all instant speed, all castable in one turn, and it's just so hard to do that because you're playing Modern, right? Yeah. You're not playing a situation where you can just be like, well, I'm just going to be great against creature decks, because then somebody sits down and plays the Storm deck and you're just dead. You know, you just can't do it all. We've sped up the video a little bit here because we did just have pairings go up.
Yeah, pretty frustrating thing for Owen there.
Make sure to see it. What happened?
Had he remembered to flip his Jace, it would have been at 7 loyalty on that turn, because he would have shrunk the creature, and he would have also had the +1 from the turn before. And because he had not done that, instead it had 4 loyalty, and Christopher was able to finish it off this turn. And that would have meant another pump spell out of Owen's graveyard in his following turn. And that could be the difference.
That is disastrous.
Like, if Owen doesn't win this turn, it's because he forgot to flip the Jace specifically. Right. I do, however, think he's just going to win this turn.
Okay. Well, he's going to have to. There's Blossoming Defense, and this is something you'll see from Infect players sometimes. They just say, look, you have to react to me. And if you have whatever, that... What?
Yeah, so that's it. And...
Oh, wow.
Game.
Well, usually when they do that, it's because they have another Blossoming Defense or Vines of Vastwood. That's crazy. He could have just attacked and just gone for it. And then when he goes, okay, fine, Fatal Push you, then he can do it. Now, he may not have had enough pump to actually do it.
And the Might of Volcrosa, so it would have been 6 on top of the 1.
But you got to test 7. The waters.
Yeah.
You just go, Rancor, and your opponent's like, kill it in response, and you're like, gotcha, and maybe that's not even the correct play from your opponent, but you can't just run out the Blossoming Defense. You just get destroyed there if he has it.
Yeah, and I mean, you give your opponent the opportunity to make the mistake, right? If you use the Might of Volcrosa and then you use the Rancor, your opponent's going to, psychologically feel pretty pressed to use that Fatal Push, in which case your Blossoming Defense is the game-winning card. So I feel like leading with the Blossoming Defense there really gives your opponent the least opportunity.
Because it makes them. It forces the hand. And that's going to do it. Christopher Senf is going to win this one 2-1. We're going to be back with more live Magic here from GP Oklahoma City right after these messages.
Check out Ixalan Booster Draft Leagues on Magic Online. Draft anytime, play anytime. Available now. For more information, visit mtgo.com. Always know the right play to make? Show off your skills at a local preliminary Pro Tour qualifier. With over 2,000 game stores worldwide running PPTQs, find an event near you at magic.wizards.com/PPTQ.